Federal agents today visited this heavily secured home and parcel of land about 3 miles from the gravesite. Investigators say the property was once owned by jailed Chicago crime boss Joseph Aiuppa. The then Godfather ran a hunting ground here called the Yorkshire Quail Club. Police say it catered to sharp-shooting thugs until the mid-'70s, when the state put Joey the Doves Aiuppa out of business.
He supposedly shot too many doves out west someplace or something, which was a felony. And I think the Conservation Department, if I remember right, closed him down here, took the gun club license away from him.
Vandervliet says underworld hunters then moved to this club a few miles away. The Pinewood Hunt Club is complete with a one-armed bandit, Las Vegas-style slot machine, and an antique barber chair, reminiscent of those sat in by many mobsters killed while getting their haircut. And we have learned tonight Tony Spilotro's brother Patrick, for years, ran a dentist practice not far from here before moving to the North Shore. Tonight in Tucson, Arizona, former FBI agent Bill Roemer, now a special consultant to the Chicago Crime Commission, says the choice of grave sites was most unusual.
Because ordinarily, when they hit somebody, they want the guy to be found right away. They want the body to be found right away because it serves as a deterrent for the rest of the mob who might be walking in the shoes, in the same path as the bad guy, in their opinion.
The Spilotros will be laid out here, although funeral plans are not expected to be completed until tomorrow. The brothers are both to be buried in Chicago, this time side by side in a cemetery instead of on top of each other in a cornfield. It should be very clear tonight that even executive-level syndicate positions don't offer life insurance fringe benefits.
At this point in time, there will be no comment.
This woman who answered the Spilotros' front door in West Suburban Oak Park identified herself as Arlene Spilotro, the wife of one of the 3 surviving brothers. She told me she'd like to comment on the archdiocesan decision to prohibit Anthony and Michael Spilotro from receiving a Catholic burial, but she said the family had already suffered enough. The Archdiocese today released a statement saying the decision is based on church law and that there is precedent for the ruling. The statement reads, "Decisions of this kind are difficult and delicate. They rest on the need to balance the good of the family, who may desire the services of the church, with the good of believers and others to whom scandal may be given by provision of a church funeral." Michael Spilotro and his family were longtime members of St. Bernardine Church here in West Suburban Forest Park. An ad for Michael's restaurant appears in the last church bulletin, even though his name is spelled wrong. A priest here this afternoon told me the decision against the Spilotros is not meant to judge their guilt or innocence.
It's a very difficult decision to make, with all the notoriety that came with their disappearance, and especially Anthony's reputation and the indictments and stuff that have come up. In the parish, while we knew Michael was under indictment, we never really were sure, never really felt from our own experience and from talking to neighbors that he was really that heavily involved with all of this. But I guess there's a thing called guilt by association or something like that, and it must apply in this instance.
Friends of the Spilotro family this afternoon came to the Salerno Funeral Home here on the far west side. They brought with them final resting clothes for the dearly departed. The brothers' bodies arrived here last night by hearse from the Indiana University Medical Center, where they underwent autopsies.
And so here we are 25 years later, 25 years after the Spilotro brothers were murdered and found in that cornfield, and they are still in the news.
Tonight's I-Team report, Blood Relatives. The only son of Tony Spilotro talks about what it was like growing up in the shadow of one of Chicago's most notorious mob bosses.
ABC 7 investigative reporter Chuck Gowdy joining us tonight with the exclusive inside story. Chuck.
Kathy, Ron, when Anthony "Ant" Spilotro walked into a room, he caused hearts to race and sometimes stop. At only 5 feet 5 inches tall, Spilotro's power wasn't from muscle. It was from an ability to intimidate and an unpredictable temper. Hollywood tried to chronicle Spilotro's life in the movie Casino. Tonight, his own family videos and an interview with his son offer a different take on these blood relatives. This is what most people remember about Tony Spilotro's life, that it ended in a midnight grave, June 1986. After a horrific beating, vengeful mob bosses drove Spilotro and his brother Michael to this Indiana cornfield where they were buried.
I just want people to understand that he wasn't this monster.
Tony Spilotro's only son, Vince, knows that rewriting his late father's life story will be difficult. 13 arrests before age 20, initiated as a full Chicago outfit member at age 25, after authorities believe he committed his trademark torture killing, putting a victim's head in a vise until his eyeballs popped out. From 1971 to 1986, he ruled Chicago mob rackets in Las Vegas.
I just wanted it to come out that, you know, he was a man. He did have, you know, family. Just the human side of him. Just tell the truth about it, you know? I mean, even if you're going to tell something bad, tell the truth about it. You know what I mean? You don't have to make a whole bunch of stuff up.
It's unclear how many people Spilotro killed during his outfit career because he was never convicted of murder, but outfit investigators put the number at between 12 and 20.
I mean, I take this home with me. I mean, I've been taking this home for 20 years.
Now he is sharing it with the I-Team, and soon Vince Spilotro will be sharing it with the paying public. Opening next month here at the Tropicana Hotel in the city limits his father once ruled, the interactive mob experience will feature Spilotro family memorabilia, baby shoes and pictures.
He was just a loving father.
Guns and bullets.
I knew what he did.
And these Spilotro family videos that show Tony Ant as Tony Santa at family parties, including Vincent's birthdays as a boy, where sometimes Tony and the boys would play cards off to one side. On family trips to Disneyland, where even a budding outfit boss waited in line. Do you think your father saw you as somebody who would at some point replace him?
No.
You don't think he was grooming you for that?
Here's what happened. I think that in the beginning he didn't. It was all school. You have to go to school, you have to do this, you have to do that. In the end, he had, you know, quadruple bypass, you know. He was getting tired. He was sharing more. I don't know if that's grooming me, but it was still school.
When mob experience plans were unveiled last summer, Tony Spilotro's reclusive widow, Nancy, was also in attendance. Their family treasures will be on display with some from Chicago boss Sam Giancana and Vegas founder Bugsy Siegel.
What would your father say about you essentially selling some of the family memories for a profit?
He wouldn't like it. It's a two-way street. I think he'd like that I'm telling the truth. Selling it for a profit sounds a little seedy. These people are going to protect it, and it's going to be, you know, displayed in a manner that's a little more classy, you know, not like somebody else would that if, you know, you were going on eBay.
For the Spilotro family, it is a chance to tell inside stories about the days growing up in this Las Vegas home and as the son of a mob boss.
I helped when I was a kid. At 18 years old, helped design his room. Okay,
was this at your house?
It was at our house. There was a place called the Security Store out here. Yeah, there was a steel door, which was covered with wallpaper. You never knew it was steel. It was a solid door with the frame. The walls were all, you know, insulated with concrete and stuff. I mean, you couldn't get into that room.
And now, after almost 25 years, the museum and this interview are a chance to come to terms with the past.
I just like to tell everybody that, you know, he's just was just a man that grew up, raised a family, and got caught up in some, you know, things that maybe he shouldn't have, but he lived it the way he lived it.
The founder of the Mob Experience Museum says he isn't setting out to glorify the Chicago outfit. He says that showing the living contradictions that were Chicago mob bosses is aimed at giving the public new insight about a significant American criminal group. Of course, that's always our interest and motivation as well.
All right, okay. Thanks, Chuck.
Chuck, thanks. Chicago mob boss James Marcello was sentenced to life in prison for his conviction in the Family Secrets mob trial. Marcello took part in one of the most infamous mob hits in Chicago history, the murder of the Spilotro brothers. And ABC 7 investigative reporter Chuck Gowdy was in court today for today's sentencing. Chuck?
Kathy, even in a dirty business, Jimmy Marcello always cared about his appearance, favoring Palm Beach sport coats, open-collared shirts, and a nice pair of sunglasses. Today was no exception. Mr. Marcello wore a jacket and dress shirt for his sentencing, leaving the bright orange jail jumpsuit in the back room. Hard to tell who Marcello was dressing for today. There was no jury, only the judge and murder victims' relatives, and they were not impressed.
Eye for an eye. You know, that's what I believe in, but unfortunately that's not the American way.
Bob D'Andrea was 19 when his father Nick was murdered by the mob, beaten for information, later found dead in the trunk of a burning car. Jimmy Marcello was one of the killers. Today in court, as Judge James Zagel considered an appropriate sentence for the 67-year-old hoodlum, Bob D'Andrea was allowed to look Marcello in the eye and tell him what he thought of him.
I just wanted him to imagine the pain my father felt when they were beating him to death.
Since Nick D'Andrea was killed in 1981, Jimmy Marcello's outfit career blossomed. Marcello was convicted in a federal gambling racketeering case and sentenced to a long stretch here in the Milan, Michigan prison. This is where the FBI secretly taped Marcello's meetings with mob underlings visiting from Chicago, during which Marcello's grip on outfit rackets continued. In 2003, when he was paroled, Marcello had a big homecoming here in the west suburbs where he was to retake his criminal throne, and the I-Team dropped by to see him.
I'd like to welcome you back home.
Is that how you welcome me back home, Chuck?
The cigars were barely out when Marcello was indicted again. This time it was Operation Family Secrets, and Marcello was convicted with 4 other top mobsters.